A teenage girl sits on a low stool in a one-room house. The house is in a hill town called Nazareth. Nobody important has ever bothered to visit Nazareth. It is not on any trade route. It is not named in any prophecy of the Messiah. It is an afterthought. The kind of place you pass through without noticing you passed through it. The girl is maybe 14. Her name is Mary. She is mending a piece of cloth. The sun is going low, and the light is turning orange against the limestone wall. The room smells like dust and olive oil and the faint smoke of a cooking fire that has already gone out. It is quiet. It is ordinary. It is a Tuesday evening exactly like 100 Tuesday evenings before it, and then, without a sound, the room fills with light. She does not scream. She does not run, she freezes. You know that kind of fear. The kind that arrives before your mind has caught up to what your eyes are seeing. The kind that locks your chest before you can even decide to be afraid. That is where she is suspended in a single heartbeat between the familiar and the impossible. And into that frozen room. A voice says 2 words. Do not be afraid. People will tell you. And you have probably heard it that God says those 2 words exactly 365 times in the Bible. One for every day of the year. It is a lovely idea. It is printed on coffee mugs. It is stitched onto throw pillows. It is shared on social media with a sunrise background and a soft font, and it is wrong. The number is wrong. And the reason the number is wrong is going to change the way you read this entire book. Because this is not a story about a number. This is not a story about a verse you once highlighted in yellow and forgot about. This is not a story about thinking positive thoughts when life gets difficult. This is a story about every single time the God who set the stars on fire leaned down toward one shaking human being and called them by name and told them not to be afraid. In Greek, the words the messenger speaks to Mary are phobou, do not fear. And by the time you understand who else heard those same words, and when, and in what condition they were in when they heard them, you are going to see something hiding underneath every single one of these stories. Something almost nobody notices. Stay with me. We start at the beginning. Go back, long before Mary. Long before Nazareth existed as a name. There is an old man standing outside his tent under a desert sky so thick with stars it hurts to look at it. His name is Abram. He is wealthy. He has livestock, he has servants. He has land stretching out around him. And he has no son in his world. That is not a small sadness. That is the erasing of his entire future. A man with no child is a man whose name dies the moment he does. Everything he has built will pass to a servant born in his household, and he is old. He has done the math lying awake in the dark, and the math says it is too late. Too late for an heir, too late for a legacy. Too late for the promise God gave him years ago about descendants like the stars. He is looking up at those stars and he is counting them. And he is not seeing promise anymore, he is seeing mockery. Then the word of the Lord comes to him in a vision. In the night. And the first thing God says is this: do not be afraid, Abram, I am your shield. I am your very great reward. Notice what just happened. God does not open with instructions. He does not open with a list of demands. He does not open with a reminder of the covenant. He opens by handling the fear first, before anything else. Before the promise is repeated, before the plan is laid out. The fear gets addressed. In Hebrew, the phrase is al-tira, do not fear. And it is going to echo through the whole Old Testament like a heartbeat, but hold on to that. Because you only see the pattern when you see who comes next. Move forward in the story, and move down, way down the social ladder. To a woman who owns nothing, not even herself. Her name is Hagar, Egyptian, a slave. Property in a household where she is not the wife and her son is not the heir. She has been driven out into the desert of Beersheba. Her and her little boy Ishmael. A skin of water and some bread is all she was given, and now the skin is empty. You have to understand what that means in that desert. No water means death, not a quick death, not a peaceful death. A slow death under a sun that does not care. So she does the only thing a breaking mother can think to do. She puts the boy under a bush. She cannot watch him die. She walks a stone's throw away. She sits down. And she lifts up her voice and she weeps. She does not pray. The text does not say she asked God for help. It says she wept. That is all she had left, and God hears point. The angel of God calls to her from heaven and says what? What do you say to a woman at the bottom of the world? What do you say to a slave with no rights and no home and no hope whose child is dying in front of her? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying. Sit in that for a moment. A runaway slave, an Egyptian. A woman with nothing in her hands. And the God who made the universe stops everything and tells her the exact same 2 words he told the wealthy patriarch. Abram and Hagar could not be more different. Wealth, status, gender, freedom. Everything between them is a canyon. And the words are identical. Do not be afraid. It is the same God, the same 2 words. The same condition, the worst moment of their lives. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern starting to form. And it gets stranger. Because the next people to hear those words are not patriarchs. They are not even free citizens with any standing. They are shepherds. Night shift. Hillside outside Bethlehem. You need to know how shepherds were seen in that world, not romantic. Not the nativity scene on your mantelpiece with the clean robes and the gentle expressions. Shepherds were the bottom of the social order. Considered ceremonially unclean. Considered so untrustworthy that their testimony was not even accepted in a court of law. They could not testify. Nobody believed a shepherd. They were the kind of people you cross the road to avoid. And they are the last people in the world you would choose to deliver the most important announcement in human history. The sky tears open above them. The glory of the Lord blazes around them, and the text says. And this is the actual Greek. They feared a great fear, not startled, not surprised, a great fear, megas phobos. The kind that empties your lungs and turns your legs to water. And the angel says the first words out of heaven. For 400 years of silence, do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. For all the people. That includes the shepherds, the outcasts. The ones whose word no court would accept. Heaven chose them. And the first thing heaven said to them was the same 2 words heaven said to a patriarch and a slave woman. Do not be afraid. Now look at what you have: a childless old man who has stopped believing the promise. A slave woman with a dying son and an empty water skin. A crew of night shift outcasts nobody trusts. 3 people. Different as any 3 people could be. And every single one of them hears the exact same 2 words in the exact same moment. The moment they are most terrified. Before we go any further, look at what these 3 share. Because it is the whole key, it was never the strong ones. It was never the people standing tall and certain and in control. Every time those 2 words appear, they land on someone who is shaking, someone at the bottom. Someone who has already run completely out of strength. If that is connecting with you right now, do me one thing. Subscribe so you do not lose this. And then drop one thing in the comments. Out of all the names we have met so far, Abram, Hagar, the shepherds, which one are you right now? The one waiting too long for a promise, the one out of water. The one on the night shift that nobody sees, tell me. I read them now. Let me show you what happens when the stakes get even higher. Picture a man hiding in a hole. His name is Gideon. And he is doing something that makes no sense unless you understand the world he lives in. He is threshing wheat at the bottom of a winepress. A winepress is a pit carved into rock, designed to be low so the grapes can be crushed and the juice can flow downhill. You do not thresh wheat in a winepress. You thresh wheat on a hilltop, where the wind can catch the chaff and blow it away. Gideon is down there because he is hiding. The Midianite raiders sweep through the land every harvest season and take everything. Crops, livestock, 7 years of this. So Gideon is doing farm work in a pit, hunched over, trying not to be noticed. He belongs to the weakest clan in the tribe of Manasseh. And by his own account, he is the least important person in that family. The bottom of the bottom of the bottom. And the angel of the Lord sits down under a tree nearby. And he watches this frightened man threshing in a hole. And then he says something so absurd it is almost funny. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Mighty warrior. To a man cowering in a winepress. God does not call Gideon what he is right now. He calls him what he will become. And when Gideon is overwhelmed, terrified, he has actually seen the face of God and is about to die for it. The words come again. Peace. Do not be afraid. You are not going to die now. Watch what happens next. Because the stakes shift from a nation under oppression to a single father's breaking heart point, there is a man named Jairus. Unlike Gideon, this one has standing. He is a ruler of the synagogue, a respected man, people know his name, people defer to him. And none of it helps him right now. Because his 12-year-old daughter is dying point, you can picture him, dignity abandoned. Pushing through a crowd that would normally step aside for him. Falling at the feet of a rabbi from Galilee, begging, "Come, lay your hands on her, please." She is dying point and Jesus goes with him, but the crowd is slow. People press in from every side. There is a woman with an issue of blood who stops him for healing. You know that part of the story. And while Jesus is still talking to her, the messengers arrive from Jairus' house point, "Your daughter is dead." Do not bother the teacher anymore point, dead, not sick, not dying, dead. The worst sentence a parent can hear. And something happens in that sentence that you have to catch or you will miss it. Jesus overhears it. He turns to Jairus. And he says, in the one moment where fear is the most reasonable and justified response on earth, do not be afraid. Just believe point. He does not say it will be fine. He does not say she is not really dead. He does not explain himself. He gives a command that should be impossible, do not be afraid. Right at the edge of a child's death. And then he keeps walking toward the house point. There is one more before we reach the end, an old man living out his years far from home. His name is Daniel, a prophet in exile. The empires have risen and fallen around him, Babylon, Persia. He has survived the lion's den, he has advised kings. And now he is on the banks of the Tigris River, and he sees something point, a vision so overwhelming that the strength drains out of his body. He falls to the ground, face in the dirt. He says he had no breath left in him, no breath, a man flattened, emptied, undone point, a hand touches him. And a voice point, do not be afraid, Daniel. You who are highly esteemed point, then again, a second time. Because once was not enough for a man that broken point, do not be afraid, peace, be strong now. Be strong point, so now you have 4 stories, 5, 6. A wealthy patriarch under the stars, a slave woman in the desert, shepherds on a hillside. A frightened man in a winepress, a father at a deathbed. A prophet face down in the dust. And every single time the ground gives way beneath a human being. The same 2 words reach down and meet them, their point, do not be afraid point. So what is actually going on here? Why these words? Why these people? Why these moments? Here is what almost everyone misses point. There is one more. He is an old man now. On a prison island called Patmos. A speck of rock in the Aegean Sea. The Romans used it as a penal colony. And this old man is the last of the 12 apostles still breathing. Every friend he ever had is gone. Most of them were killed for the same faith that put him on this island. Peter, crucified upside down, James, killed by the sword, Andrew, bound to a cross. And now this one, John, is alone on a rock in the middle of the sea, the same John who leaned his head against Jesus at the Last Supper, who stood at the foot of the cross and watched him die, who ran to the empty tomb and saw the grave clothes folded. He has seen more than any human being alive. And yet on a Sunday decades later, he hears a voice behind him like a trumpet point. He turns point and he sees the risen Christ, blazing, eyes like fire, feet like burnished bronze, face like the sun at full strength point. And John, the apostle, the eyewitness, the one who already knew him, falls at his feet as though dead. Then a hand, the same hand he felt at that dinner table. And the words point, do not be afraid, I am the first and the last, I am the living one. I was dead and behold, I am alive forever, and ever. This is no longer about crops or water or even a dying child. The stakes here are everything, life and death themselves. And what waits on the other side? And the answer to the highest fear a human being can face, the fear of death. And what comes after it is the very same 2 words spoken to a slave woman dying of thirst in a desert. And a teenage girl in a backcountry town who was mending a piece of cloth when heaven broke into her living room. Do not be afraid point. So now, finally. That number point, remember they told you God says it 365 times. 1 for every day of the year. Here is the truth. Nobody can give you a clean number. It depends on which translation you read. It depends on how you count the exact phrase versus close variations. It might be more than 365, it might be fewer. And it does not matter. The number was never the point. Chasing the number makes you miss the thing that actually matters. Go back and check every single one. Those 2 words were never shouted to a crowd. They were never broadcast to a stadium of the strong and the confident, and the people who had their lives together. They were spoken to one person, one in the dark. In the worst hour of their life, called by name. By name. Abram. Hagar. Mary. Gideon. Jairus. Daniel. John. Which means this is not a story about a number on a calendar. This is not a story about ancient people in a faraway desert you will never visit. This is not a story you watch from a safe distance, nodding along. Untouched. Because if the pattern holds, and the pattern has not broken once, then those 2 words were never meant for the people who had it all together. They were never for the ones standing tall, confident, crushing every day. They were meant for the person sitting in a dark room at 3 in the morning. The person who just got a phone call that cracked something inside them. The person holding the pieces together while everyone around them assumes they are fine. They were meant for someone who is afraid. Right now they were meant for you, and you did not land on these words by accident. Before you go, hold on to 3 things. First. In the Bible, do not be afraid is almost never said by itself. Go back and look. It is followed by a promise every time. I am your shield. God has heard the boy crying. I bring you good news of great joy. Just believe. You are highly esteemed. I am the first and the last. The command to drop the fear always comes with a reason, a someone strong enough to carry it for you. The fear is not dismissed. It is replaced. Second. These words never landed on the powerful because they were powerful. They landed on the weak, the cornered, the emptied out. The ones who had nothing left to give. If you feel like you are the least likely person in this room, right now you are not disqualified. In this book you are exactly the kind of person these words go looking for. Third. It was always tied to a name, never a faceless crowd. Never a generic blessing sent into the void, always a name, always one person. Abram, Hagar, Mary, Gideon, Daniel, John. And if the pattern is real, and it is, then there is one name on this list that has not been spoken out loud. Yet. Yours. So here is my question. I genuinely want your answer. Out of every name we met tonight, Abram waiting under the stars and the promise feels dead. Hagar in the desert with an empty water skin, Mary frozen in the light. Gideon in the winepress hoping nobody sees him. Peter sinking, John alone on that island. Which one are you tonight? Type that name in the comments, just the name. You are not going to be the only one. The sky never tore open for the people who did not need it to tear open. It tore open for the ones who were shaking, for the ones at the bottom. For the ones who had run out. And if that is you, if you are reading this, and you are afraid and you are tired, and you are barely holding on, then listen to me. Those 2 words were never about a number on a calendar. They were always about a God who leans down to one person, in the dark, and calls them by name. They were always, always meant for you.